I'm getting to a point. I know I'm going on vacation in a couple weeks to Europe, but I'm getting to the point where I need hockey back. Is there a point in the summer where you're like, "Okay, this is fun. Let's move on. I want to call another game here."
Yeah, it's funny because all those years that I worked at NHL radio, I would basically walk away on vacation about mid-July. So probably, yeah, 2 or 3 weeks into free agency when things are still kind of happening, and then just walk away until September, and basically walk away for about 5 or 6 weeks, which was fantastic. And you're not thinking about anything hockey related there. You're just in recharge mode. But now my schedule is way different, and being attached to one team, and when that season's over, you go through all the emotions of the elimination and looking back at the season that was and thinking about how my performance was and what I can improve on moving forward. And I put hockey away until the Stanley Cup is awarded. I love watching the cup being raised. I've always been a fan of watching the Stanley Cup celebration, no matter what the team. Not at all interested in the team that wins it, but just the celebration and watching these players live out a dream. It's just no matter what the sport, I love watching the championship celebration. But yeah, I think once we get past free agency and we get into now the late weeks of July, I love summer. I love baseball, but you start just sort of pining for it because free agency signings start to, be coming to a trickle, and there's just not a lot of, there's a lot of trade talk around the NHL, but not a lot of movement happening. So when I turn on sports radio or television panel shows, and I go 2 or 3 days now in a row where there isn't just a ton of hockey talk, yeah, I start feeling that itch. Absolutely.
Hmm. Well, you took over for Andy Frost, who was the announcer when I was there, who I remember, and now all of a sudden you look back and you've been doing it for a while, but and really good at it by all accounts. I think people are getting pretty used to your voice and enjoying it. But how did that come about? How does one go about becoming the in-game announcer for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, first of all, I can't believe that I'm about to walk into my 10th season already. Like, that's just mind blowing to me. And I can honestly say, I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would ever be in this position. And I'm a guy who grew up in Ottawa. I was a Maple Leafs fan growing up and got into public address announcing in sports very much haphazardly. I was in university. I was doing a sports show on the campus radio station, and the football team needed an announcer. So they came to me and they said, "Hey, you do a sports show, right? You want to be our new announcer?" And I'm like, "Okay." And, hey, you're in university, you get a chance to go work with a football team, and they're going to give you $50 a game to cash to do that. That's great beer money when you're talking, university days. That's huge. So I jumped into it, and had no idea that this could ever become a thing. Like, it was literally a way to get $50 a week for like 4 or 5 weeks during the university football season. But eventually, I really enjoyed it and did it for a few seasons. And then suddenly the junior hockey team in town was looking for a new announcer. So I auditioned for it and eventually got the gig. And then the AAA baseball team in town, I was doing some fill-in work there on the side in all kinds of game presentation positions. Ended up starting to do it for them and eventually became their full-time announcer. So all of a sudden in Ottawa sports, I'm doing a lot of different gigs. I'm working a lot of different teams. But then I moved to Toronto in 2001, and that's it. Like, I figure, okay, that was a nice chapter of my life, and I'm not going to be doing any announcing anymore, because guess what? Every team in Toronto has their voice. And at that point, these were people that had been in their positions for a while, or in the case of least of the Maple Leafs, Andy Frost had only been in the job for two seasons, maybe 3 seasons when I moved to Toronto. So there wasn't a ton of opportunities. But eventually in 2010, I got a chance to do some games for Ottawa in the NHL because the gentleman who had hired me to do junior hockey for the Ottawa 67s was working with the Senators now, and they needed a fill-in guy for their guy who was going to be away at the Paralympic Games in Vancouver. And that was sort of my foot back in the door, if you will. I ended up doing a few games for them for several seasons, but that sort of got me interested in it again. The big opportunity, though, that led to my foot getting in the door at MLSE was the World Junior Championship, the first one that was held here in Toronto in 2015. And being fully bilingual, I knew that Team Canada and Hockey Canada always hired 2 announcers for the World Juniors. They hired a French announcer and an English announcer. I called up Hockey Canada and said, hey, I'm fluently bilingual. I've done junior hockey. I've done the Memorial Cup. I will kill 2 birds with 1 stone for you. Can I get an audition for the job in Toronto? I got the audition. I won the job, and that was it. I was working with folks at MLSE, and that just, I don't know, that put the spotlight on me a little bit in and around the GTA, because from there, I got an invite to audition for the Pan Am Games in 2015. I did baseball for that. Then I get an invitation to go out and do some games for the men's national soccer team and some World Cup qualifying games. So it just, that snowball started to roll and get a little bit bigger for me. And in 2016, I get a call from the Maple Leafs, and they said, listen, we're sort of hitting the reset button on our in-game entertainment. We're looking for a new announcer, and we'd like to offer you an audition. So I was one of 22 people who got a shot at auditioning for the job and went through the process. And when it was all said and done, I got a phone call that for me, I mean, Jay, you played in the NHL. I was never going to play in the NHL, but to get that phone call, which ended by having the director of game presentation say, "Welcome to the Toronto Maple Leafs." I mean, that to me was, I mean, my knees went weak, and it's something I'll never forget. I got chills when it happened. I get chills when I recount it happening. It was a very special moment, and I can't believe that it's 10 years ago already.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Like, we worked together back in the day at NHL Network Radio, and even that was a long time ago. Is there a particular moment that stands out now in your 9 years on the job that just really resonates with the job you've done thus far?
Honestly, I mean, too many. If you go back to my very first home opener, that was the night that we retired all those numbers, the
Mhm.
numbers that had been honored numbers all those years. And so, I mean, imagine you're the new in-arena announcer for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they say, by the way, your first home opener, there's going to be a ceremony in which we're going to retire all these numbers. And here's your script. It's 30 minutes long. Good luck. And it was like, what? So the preparation, that went into that whole ceremony was unbelievable, and a great way to be sort of baptized into the organization. But I mean, honestly, the outdoor game, the All-Star game, getting to travel with the team to go to Sweden a couple of seasons ago, and being the voice of that global series in Sweden. I mean, there've just been so many amazing opportunities for me. And that's, just speaking about team things, when you start talking about, major individual events, you think about Austin Matthews and all the goals that he's scored. You think about the team that first year, that first season where we qualify for the playoffs in our second last game of the year. I had my parents there for that game. It was the first time that they'd heard me announcing for the Maple Leafs. So yeah, just a ton of special moments along the way that if you ask me, is there one? I could never, ever just pick one. There've just been way too many.
Hmm. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, being part of the Maple Leafs organization in general is pretty special. Like, what is a game day look for you? Is a lot of preparation. I imagine there's some perks being part of it up there as well. And what goes into a day at work for you?
I mean, first thing I do in the morning is grab the rosters from the media notes for that day and just give it a quick perusal and see if there are any names that have been added to the rosters for that day. Are there any names that aren't familiar to me? The great thing about this job, even in the time that I've been doing it, is that technology has really helped us as announcers along the way here. I can think, of the days when before a game, you'd have to go down to the dressing room and talk to a PR person and double check pronunciations with them and hope that they're giving you the right information. Nowadays, you've got YouTube clips. A lot of teams will actually have the players themselves recorded and uploaded onto their website. So you hear the player tell you exactly how he wants his name pronounced. We even have a website that a bunch of the announcers from around the NHL we contribute to. And we, at the start of the season, all read our own rosters and a series of minor league players that we anticipate could be called up at some point during the season. And we share those files with each other. So I can actually go in before a game and hear how the Nashville announcer pronounces particular names on his team so that I'm giving the same pronunciation that he's getting or that he's giving in his arena. And so that's the big part of the day as far as preparing is just having the latest information, going over the stats, seeing if there are any players that on our team that are set to score their first NHL goal or their first goal as a Maple Leaf, because to me, those are so special to call. The first goal in the NHL, the first goal as a Toronto Maple Leaf, the response from the crowd is always great when you get to announce those. And it's such a special moment for that player, for their family and friends that are in the building. So I want to make sure that I give a particular emphasis on that. So I need to know that information going in. I head to the arena usually for about 3:30, 3:45, and we run through a rehearsal of the pregame. And, we might go through it once or twice, depending on the night. If there's a big ceremony, we'll go through all of that, work out all the timing on that. And then it's a quick dinner, and we have tours that actually come through the booth before the game where Jimmy Holmstrom, the longtime organist for the Maple Leafs, and I are in the same booth, and we welcome guests into the booth and answer their questions, talk a little bit about our jobs with the Maple Leafs. And then the puck drops, and then it's time to go. Once warm up starts, we're all in game mode, and puck drops for the first period, and off we go.
So as you know, just to wrap, I was there during the COVID seasons doing the games on Sportsnet Radio, and it was just very unique times. Actually, wasn't even at the arenas, but what was that overall experience for, a PA voice who's got to be in the building, being there during COVID?
Yeah, I think honestly, the first thing that I had to wrap my head around was being in an empty building and not having a crowd react to your calls the way you normally would. And once you got past that, it got a little bit easier. Of course, they had the sweetener audio that they had in the arena that they would play in reaction to what you're doing. But once we sort of realized that we were there really to add some normalcy for the players in what was a really surreal situation, yeah, it got easy. It only took a couple of games to really sort of find our way and find our groove and work through it. The other thing that was kind of weird for me was because we were doing all the games in that initial playoff bubble, like we were assigned specific assignments. So there were two announcers. There was myself and there was Simon Bennett, who's the announcer for the Marlies. Reason being was I had to do every Maple Leafs game. I had to do every Montreal home game because it had to be bilingual. And then we had to work out the schedule so that you never worked or tried not to work back-to-back days. So unless there was a Toronto and a Montreal game on back-to-back days, we always basically had a day off between games because we would do anywhere from 2 to 3 games a day during that bubble. But that was the schedule. And honestly, on the one hand, I found it pretty special that in one summer, I got to be the arena voice for a couple of the original 6 teams in the NHL. And somebody said to me, you're the answer to a trivia question now. If anyone ever crafted a trivia question about PA announcers and original 6 teams, or, name the PA announcer who was once the home announcer for X number of teams in a playoff season, that was kind of odd. And having to be, sort of positive, if you will, like not a complete homer, but you had to be a positive voice, sort of a neutral / slightly positive voice for all the teams that we were announcing for. And so to be put in a situation where you're now being positive for Boston and for Montreal and like these division rivals that we dislike so much during the regular season. I mean, we have a saying, among PA announcers, when we announce a goal for the visiting team, it's kind of a monotonous call. We call it a disinterested read. And all of a sudden, you can't be disinterested with all these teams. You have to put a little bit of oomph into all the calls. That took a little getting used to, putting some positivity into a call for the Bruins or the Canadiens or the Tampa Bay Lightning. But again, once you got past that and really just embraced, number one, the fact that we were working at a time when a lot of people weren't working in professional sports, and B, we were living something really unique. I mean, at the end of the day, how many people actually got to work in a sports bubble like that in pro sports, in the NHL? A handful of people. And it's an experience I don't think anyone involved will ever forget.
Yeah, and I hope we don't have to experience that again. It was the crazy, crazy time. Excellent job as per usual. Looking forward to hearing that voice once again coming up in the fall. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.